Hi everyone, Steve from the Audiophiles. Welcome to another Mobile Fidelity Analog Productions Audiophile Vinyl Roundtable discussion. Great discussion today. Great guest today as usual. So we'll get to that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Click on that subscription button. It helps me out a ton. Thank you so much. And please come out, check us out. The Hi-Fi Center, 433 Carroll here in downtown Vancouver. All your hi-fi needs. Come down if you're in Vancouver or if you're visiting Vancouver, 433 Carroll, the Hi-Fi Center. Let's get to it. Our roundtable discussion. We'll see you on the other side of the audio files.
Ready?
All right.
Hello, everyone. Steve Westman from the Audiophiles. This is a special MOFI Analog Productions Audiophile Vinyl Roundtable discussion. I've got our special guest today, Kevin Gray. Kevin, thank you for joining us on this special edition.
My pleasure. Good morning to all you guys.
Glad you could be here. And I've got the other part of my motley crew, Nathan Goss, who writes for the different Mobile Fidelity Facebook groups, Analog Production Facebook groups. There's some great reviews. Nathan, thank you. You get a lot of, I get a lot of people asking me to have you on a lot. So I guess you're becoming my wingman or something like that. So
there you go.
For that.
There you go.
and then you've heard of Disneyland. You've heard of Summerland here in BC. There's also Peachland. Now we have Mazzyland. Norman Mazzy Maslov, thank you for joining me, my other wingman. So in Canada we play hockey, so I'd be the centerman, and Maz would be my left winger, and Nathan would be my right winger. And I brought two more Canadian things. I got my Tim Hortons coffee for anyone who knows anything about Canada. You can see it here, and of course my Tragically Hip shirt, one of my favorite bands of all time, and my favorite Canadian band. So welcome, guys, to this. This will be fun. I want to start with Nathan. Any news this week that you want to report
on? It's been a pretty quiet week. The only thing that I was going to bring up is, Can't Buy a Thrill is still showing as being released tomorrow, November 4th. So I haven't heard anything different than that. Haven't seen any shipping notices or anything like that. I didn't know if any of you had heard anything counter to that, but that's the first.
I heard
UHQR.
I heard Chad's starting to ship tomorrow, but as you know me, I'm not a UHQR box guy, so
I think we know that.
And yeah, exactly. I'm glad Chad has you in his sights this last week instead of the box set Northwestern tree hugger up here, but they apparently, some people have gotten the Bernie Grunman digital release that UMG or UMC, whatever, UME just put out. There's advanced copies of that. I'm curious to hear that. For $30, I'm going to check it out.
That one was released yesterday, actually. So anyone that ordered on Amazon probably either got it today, they'll get it today, or they got it yesterday already. I did order mine as well. So that
was a Wednesday release. Wow.
Yeah, I know. It was a Grunman master, but cut by, I don't know who it was cut by. I can't remember the guy's name, but that'll be interesting. It's a digital.
So those should be arriving the middle of next week, I would think, for most customers at this point.
And then I need to correct. I know you said, Chad was in my. I guess I was in Chad's sites last week or the week before when Kevin. I guess it was you, Mazzy, myself, and Nathan were talking about the UHQR release of Can't Buy a Thrill in Asia. 20,000 for all the UHQR Steely Dans except for Asia. 30,000, not 40,000, like I said. I would confuse that with the Thriller release. So I wanted to correct that. Chad texted me and wanted me to let me know that he had people calling going, I thought it was 40,000. No, it's 30. So anyways, and then I know Kevin and I, a couple of weeks ago back, we were doing our roundtable and you wanted to make a correction on something that we chatted about as well.
Oh, right. Just the stuff that I was doing for Jackpot Records. I mentioned we were doing Electric Prunes, 3 albums, and the other I got that one right, but the other one was I think I said the Wipers, and I meant to say the Meters, which was an R&B band, soul band. 3 albums for them too.
The New Orleans guys, right?
Yeah. It's basically.
Is it the Warner Brothers stuff?
Yeah, but it's licensed from Warner, and it was all from original master tapes.
Oh, I love those records.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Sounded great.
When will that come out?
That I can't say. I just don't know.
Yeah. Okay. That'll be exciting as well.
Remember,
Did anyone?
everything's taking forever right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I know. So Nathan, anything to report from Mobile Fidelity? I don't think there's anything going on there.
Like I said on our last call, I mean, it's kind of like maybe the calm before the storm. I mean, there's just not much happening right now, but I mean, it's that time of year where things kind of die down until the holidays and the new year. So things have been really quiet. And even for me personally, I feel like I'm like, there hasn't been anything lately that I've been like real excited about. So hopefully there'll be some, coming titles and things like that. But right now I feel like we're like in that lull that tends to happen in the October, November time of the year.
Well, I bet you Kevin will probably wish he had some time off. I'm sure he's still busy.
Yeah.
Are you busy, Kevin? Like just
crazy busy.
Yeah.
But I am taking the third week off to go back to Asheville, North Carolina for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
My brother-in-law lives back there, and we're going to have a tour of Citizen Vinyl. Are you familiar with that pressing plant? Have you heard of it?
I've heard the name, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Go to their website and check it out. It's kind of a blast. They bought this building, which was the Citizen Times building, built in the 30s. Great Art Deco
Newspaper
building. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it also had a radio station in it later on. Anyway, the guy who owns the whole operation converted the radio station into a recording studio with really good, all discrete console and analog gear. And then he built a pressing plant with right now just 3 presses. I think they're adding a 4th. And then they have a cafe, which carries vinyl, surprise, and a coffee place, all in this one building. Which
I'm there. That's the only reason I'm going to Nashville. I'm going to Asheville. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a trip.
Do you know, have any of your production or mastering been pressed there? Do you know?
Well, that's the funny thing. When we signed up for the tour, my wife didn't mention to them that I've been mastering probably a good percentage of their output because Sundays is using them exclusively now. And I'm doing tons of work for them. And by the way, another thing I should mention about Sundays, for years they had a reputation started by one of the reviewers who I won't mention, that everything was from CD. And that might have been true quite a few years ago. But now, I mean, everything's from high-res digital or analog. I'm getting analog tapes on some stuff from them. So,
yeah,
I'm a huge fan of them. I follow them because I follow Bill Irwin and when he owned it and that whole thing. And of course, one of my top 3 bands of all time are the Byrds. So I have all your Byrds mono cuts.
Okay.
I like the Leonard Cohen stuff. It's great. And I like their modern harmonic. I just got, I almost pulled it today, but I realized you didn't master it. But I guess you cut the lacquer of the Colin Blunstone. The Colin Blunstone. I thought that sounded fantastic. Sure. I'd never heard that record before.
Yeah, he was with was it Zombies? Well, he was with one of the 60s.
He was the lead singer of Zombies. It came out in 71. I never heard it.
I like that record. Yeah, it was a good record.
Gorgeous. Yeah. Okay.
So, Kevin, one thing I wanted to ask you, and this kind of leads into a little bit. I've been trying to read some body language with some of your videos, and I noticed that, and I could be totally wrong here, but do you cringe a little bit when you hear things like audiophile label? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be an audiophile sounding record if it's on an audiophile label and vice versa.
Well, not that I was aware of, but maybe you busted me on something that I wasn't even aware of. I mean,
like, it can sound good regardless of who. Like,
that's true.
I feel like,
that's true. I mean, I try to make a point. People ask me about Sundays because a lot of the stuff comes to me pre-mastered. So I'm not actually. I'm just cutting it. And they sell for less than audiophile prices. I think they're like $25 records, right? So I make a point out of saying that, but not in any way to bash them, just to clarify, sort of, if that makes any sense.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like the Blue Note stuff that you've done typically has a $25 price point, which I think is one of the best bargains in the business.
The Classic Series.
The Classic Series, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
The Classic.
Anyway, I just wanted to ask you about that because
I wasn't aware of it.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Starting more rumors. Yeah, that's how we get everyone gets in trouble there.
Well, Kevin always gets in trouble when he comes on our show.
I do.
That's
I
right.
always, yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what I do. It's hypnotizing. It's this Canadian, my Canadian accent or something like that. It's very hypnotizing. I don't know.
I've
Could be.
told
Any
you,
minute
Steve,
now
I have
that
Canadian friends besides you. So it ain't that.
I know. Okay, must not
I
be.
think we're in trouble if that recording light behind Kevin turns red and turns on. Then we all got to
Yes.
shut up.
Yeah. It's the wiretap. It's the wiretap
Right,
back there.
Oh man. So Mazzy, you talked to Joe Harley, who of course Kevin works closely with, yesterday on your channel. That was a great interview, by the way.
You
Joe's
know what
amazing.
I like? First of all, I think this is a kumbaya, being from a San Francisco West Coast boy,
Yeah.
the kumbaya thing in this. Talking to Joe Harley yesterday, I didn't realize to the evening it was Rudy Van Gelder's birthday yesterday.
Oh,
So that was perfect.
I forgot it too.
Happy birthday, Rudy.
Yeah.
Right. And then today, meeting, well, obviously the other tone poet half in the mastering here of Kevin Gray. It's just really wonderful. Talking to Joe was, Kevin knows better than anybody, what a gracious person he is, what a lover of music. And our thing was, I do these videos occasionally. It's the music stupid, like it's the economy stupid way back in the Clinton days, because unlike you two, I'm not all in on the audiophile. I like great sound. If it's produced great sound, whatever comes into my stereo, I'm as old as Kevin, and I've listened to music all my life, literally, and I just want good sound. And people freak out because I have a TV between my speaker. I get it, but I want to enjoy the music. And talking to Joe, to have him show a handful of albums that he loves, no matter what the source, no matter what. And I was surprised on a few I didn't know. And we did joke, and I mentioned on that thread or on that video he was with Kevin, when he mentioned the War album and it sold out and everybody, wanted it's not one of my picks, but this War's greatest hits. And so I said, whatever you mention here is going to start selling out. People are going to buy them. Sure enough, I went out and bought 3 of the records before I uploaded the video. And I've had comments already overnight where about 5 or 6 people ordered things that I didn't know about. But there were a couple of surprises. And the only thing that I mentioned to you is he did out of the blue, not prompt, because it wasn't a pressing thing. He showed Miles in the Sky, the MOFI, and because I love that record. I love the whole Tony that second quintet. And he and then I said, look, I got to ask you, since you showed that, your take on that. And he says the MOFI Miles crush his originals, and that's how he feels about that. I tend to agree, but I don't want to get into that discussion here. But it was nice that I had to ask him that since he was there, and I wanted an opinion. I heard him say that, I think, with Kevin on a Michael 45 thing at one point a while back too. So that's it. It was great. A very generous man. Really appreciate it.
He must be fun working with, though. Hey, Kevin, just when you guys are cutting records together.
We describe it. Both of us talk about it. It's like a party every time we get together, because the music is great, and we're both kind of geeking out on it. In a lot of cases, he's never actually heard the master tape. He's just got a pressing, and that's how he chose it. So it's fun. It's always.
Do you usually do several over a couple of days at once, or how does that work?
Do 4. Well, we used to do 4 in 2 days. Now we've cut it back to 3 because we're so far out right now. We're doing titles way ahead.
Right.
Yeah. So we did.
He did mention. And he did mention one teaser that he hadn't announced yet, which I loved. A 1967 Wayne Shorter record with the psychedelic greenish cover. I know you probably can't say. He did mention he showed his original, so that was his one teaser. Drop teaser. Exactly. So
And when does that come out, Mazzy?
It's in the cycle, he said. He didn't say what month, but I can't. I'm blanking on the name. What do you remember the name, Kevin?
I don't.
Of course you don't. I don't remember either.
I'm terrible with this stuff.
Okay, keep going.
I have to remind people, I do up to 400 titles. This year, I'm going to hit 400 titles, I think.
That one. Wow. It's on the video, so I'm not breaking any news here. So.
Okay.
We don't know when that comes out. He just said He said that was the news.
It sounds. My impression was that he bumped it up in the queue it sounds like, but I don't know what that means. So in mid-December, they're going to announce the rest of 223, he said.
Interesting.
Cool.
The Tone Poets.
So Kevin, you're a Beatles fan. Did you buy the Beatles Revolver box set, or did you order it? No.
No, I'm not to knock Sean's work or anybody's work, but I've been really underwhelmed with most of these remix reissue things. I just don't have any interest in it. I mean, I'll put on my Parlophones and I'm totally happy. You know, the old.
What
what
year are your Parlophones? Are they the mid-'80s ones that you like?
Yes, yeah, but they were from older stampers. I think they were remasters though, that might have been done in the 70s, but they sound phenomenal.
Yeah, it's when they put out those the blue box.
That's what it is.
To
That's
82.
what I play. That's my go-to for Beatles.
They're great. They're great. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything I like better. So you know, I just don't run out and buy every new Beatles reissue. It's just, you know, whatever. Enough.
Yeah. No, I just I haven't even listened to the Super Deluxe. I ordered my vinyl box, but it hasn't come to my house yet. I've listened to it online as well. I mean, the remixes, they don't sound as, I guess, as muddy. I mean, you're hearing it a little bit more clearly. I mean, it sounds different, definitely does. But I'm just a mono guy when it comes to the Beatles. So I like Sean's 2014 box that he cut mono. Miles cut the remix, of course, that Giles did as well, and Sean recut the mono that's in the box.
Now,
pretty much.
The 2014 one, that was from Analogue, right?
Yeah.
The mono box, which had the stereo of, what was it, Help and Rubber Soul, I think, also?
Well, there was some issues. The one thing, Help doesn't sound good in mono on side one for some reason on that. It just doesn't. And I'm one that likes Revolver and Sgt. Pepper in stereo. Maybe it's because that's what I bought in 1967. To me, those are, and I know the whole thing, the Beatles and George Martin and Jeff Emmerich meant it to be mono. I get that. But to me, psychedelia is stereo. And I get that. So, you know,
I actually agree. I'm not a big fan, other than the first two albums, which, you know, were done, quote, twin track in the US, which was just sucked.
Did you do that Sunday's Big Brother mono that came out years ago, Cheap Thrill, a decade ago?
I believe so. Yeah. I've been doing just about all of their stuff since 2011.
Because that was interesting, because I never even knew that came out in mono originally that year. That was that transitional years. Right. Curious. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So the Beatles, you know, the Sean did the Beatles mono box 2014. I found out, and I know Norman knew this, but I mean, Love Me Do was a digital cut. So it wasn't an analog cut on the Please Please Me album. And Please Please Me was also was actually mastered from an actual tape copy of the master.
Right. So you guys are getting the weeds more than I do. I don't care. It's like that Horseu, that sacred Magic Mystery Tour Horseu that came out in Germany is the best sounding Magic Mystery Tour album. And that's probably from a copy tape. How did that happen? What the F is that about? I don't know. So
that's the Beatles. Yeah. So I want to get into some of our favorite albums. I want to start with Kevin. I think he brought some. So Kevin, go for it.
Okay. And, you know, I brought a kind of a mix of stuff that I did and other stuff. Let me start with, I want to tell you a quick story. Back in the mid-'70s, I met three guys who kind of rocked my world, and they were my favorite clients for years and years and years. As a matter of fact, Joe Harley's the only guy who gives me a run for the money in favorite land. But it was called Sky High Productions, and it was Larry and Fonz Mizell and Chuck Davis. And the brothers, Larry and Fonz. Larry was an aerospace engineer. He was one of the inventors of liquid crystal displays, working in aerospace. Fonz, his brother, was part of the corporation, as they called it, at Motown, did, you know, Jackson 5, you know, all this great stuff. And so they started this production company, and one of the first records they put out was the Blackbirds, Donald Byrd, you know, Walking in Rhythm, which was a major smash hit record.
The red cover.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I did not do that one, but I started working with them shortly after, and I did many of their titles in the mid-'70s. And so I've got a couple here. Now, these have both been reissued in the Classics series. One is Fancy Dancer. Can you see that? Can you make me full screen so I can see what I'm...
I don't know if I can here. See here, sorry. I'm on my phone, so no, it doesn't. I can't do that.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm getting a glare. Anyway, Fancy Dancer by Bobby Humphrey. And there's another album too called Black and Blues, I think it is. And I don't have that handy. I couldn't find it. I do have it. Anyway, and then this is one of my favorites. This is called, I always get it backwards. It's Places and Spaces. I always say Spaces and Places. Places and Spaces by Donald Byrd. And I love this album. And they're available. These are my originals. They're available in the classic series now. And that was a blast to get to recut them, you know, I mean, revisit them after 40 years, whatever it's been. Anyway, and then, but working with those guys was just a trip. They were just so cool. I had a special connection with Chuck Davis, who designed a box that he called DEBI, D-E-B-I, which stood for Davis Ear-Brain Interface. And it was one of the first boxes that came out that gave you a much wider stereo when you put program through it. And so we used that actually in the mastering. He built one for program and preview and all of that. And so we were using that for cutting both of those titles and a few others. And anyway, cool stuff, fun guys. And then I did a lot of other stuff that wasn't, those are actually both Blue Notes. But did LTD, Love, Togetherness, and Devotion for A&M, and did, what else did I do for them? Gosh, mental block. But yeah, lots of good stuff. Now, two of my favorite, one of my favorite bands of all time is the Crusaders. And Chain Reaction is my favorite Crusaders album. Joe Sample on keyboards. And Wayne, is it Wayne Henderson? Yeah, I get yeah. And yeah. Anyway, Stix Hooper on drums. Yeah, I'm forgetting the names of the group. But anyway,
Larry Carlton.
Well, in this period, yes. This is one of the albums. Larry was only on about 3 of their albums, I think, 3 or 4, maybe. But of course, they're the offshoot of the Jazz Crusaders, which I wasn't even aware of at the time that I was, you know, hearing this. By the way, this was cut by Doug Sachs at Mastering Lab, and he did an, you know, amazing job. And I think he did all of the Crusaders albums and most of Joe Sample's albums. And Joe is my favorite keyboard player of all time. I just love that guy. And one of my goals was to work with him someday. Sacrilegious, but I'll show you the CD of my favorite Joe Sample. This. Yeah. So that's, what is that called? Mental block again. Spellbound. Yeah, that's my favorite Joe Sample album. Also mastered by Doug. And I should get the vinyl on that because I'm sure it sounds amazing. Let's see. And then one of my favorite, this was a Blue Note. I'm trying to get Jem Kurzman to, greenlight this to put out as a classics. It's Ronnie Law's Pressure Sensitive.
Oh, yeah.
Just love this record. For those who don't know, Ronnie Laws is part of that whole Houston. Well, actually, that's Hubert Laws. Yeah, his brother.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Ronnie plays sax. But
Flautist.
the brothers, he's the younger brother. Ronnie is, and but he's part of that whole Houston group that included the Crusaders. They all grew up together, and so he was the kid. But anyway, love that record. So that's my main show and tell.
Those ABC records in mid 70s sound real. I worked for ABC from 77 until MCA gobbled them up in 79. And all those, I got in there right when Asia came out. And those pressings right before that were so good. I remember when I left the company after MCA bought us, I got laid off for 2 months and I got rehired. I had 2 or 3 boxes of Asia promo copies. Can you imagine if I had those now?
Yeah.
Wow. So thank you for that, Kevin. So we didn't tell Kevin this one, but we're going to fanboy Kevin now. We brought some of our favorite Kevin Gray cuts.
Whoops, sorry.
So I want Nathan to start. Show me some of your favorite Kevin Gray mastered albums, please.
All right, well, I'll start with the only one that I picked that is mono. It's the Hella and Merrill that Kevin did. And I think you did the mastering and the lacquers for this one. This is the Analogue Productions reissue.
Right.
But I picked this one because it is impossible to find a clean original for less than probably $1,000. I mean, this is a hard one to find. So fantastic work on this, particularly the vocals. I mean, to me, a vocal record, the vocals really need to just sit out in front of the band. And I mean, it's just a beautiful job that you did on that one. So wanted to highlight that as both a mono pressing, but also one that really highlights the vocal articulation, especially for something from 1955, where oftentimes you get a lot of that, distortion in the vocals. You can occasionally, depending on the recording, but I mean, this is a beautiful, the Analogue Productions did a fantastic, the artwork and
I never saw
everything.
It. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, they did a fantastic job with this one. I think this goes for about $40 right now. And like I said, if you want to track down an original,
well, it did up until this airs.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I did another one that's kind of in that genre that I really like a lot. It was June Christie's Something Cool that was done for Cisco back in the early 2000s. Yeah, another great mono female vocalist, great recording.
Yeah. Yep.
There's no clause in your contract, or they have to send you a copy at least of every album you do.
I wish.
That's what Joe said. He goes, to get stuff on release day, sometimes he has to order his own records through Amazon.
Yeah,
it takes forever. Yeah.
I do too.
Wow.
Yeah. Are we popcorning this, Steve, and bouncing back and forth, or
can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Go again, Nathan.
All right. So, Kevin, my favorite this is in my top 5 just stereo mixes of any record, is the work that you did on the Bluesy Burrell. I mean, this, I bring this up all the time, but the sound on this is unbelievable. I mean, when Coleman Hawkins sax enters the first track about halfway through from the right channel, it's like an uppercut that just slams you. And so I think this is one of the best stereo mixes.
Was that also Acoustic Sounds? I don't remember who that was for.
This is their
was that in the A-Jazz series?
Yeah, it still has the Moodsville label on it, but they reissued that for you.
Yeah.
And there's an SACD as well, but I
love Kenny. I saw him live just a few years ago. He was already in his mid 80s. He's got to be 90 now, or close to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So great album and incredible, reissue there.
Yeah. Thank you. Was that a Van Gelder recording? Do you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Any more, Nathan?
I
can't get away from that guy. Oh, I love that record. I absolutely love that record.
This here is so underrated. It's like criminal. Like the drums. I brought this one up because of the drums on this. It's one of the best sounding records. Just the drums alone. I mean, the obviously it was well recorded.
Yes.
But this reissue that you did.
Thank you, Joe and I geeked out over that one when we heard the tape. We were kind of like, "Whoa!"
It is in the room. I mean, it is in the room. And it's one of those records where not only do you kind of get the width of the drum set, but you also get like that incredible depth with the toms and everything. So, I mean, that's in my top 10 jazz albums of all time. I mean, that record is so good. So
that was one of the first tone podcasts as being one of my favorite tone poets.
Yeah, wasn't that one of the first tone poets in the first few months?
It was very early,
Yeah. Yep. So good.
Yep.
Hey, Norman, your turn.
All right. Well, this record, it only came out in the last month or 6 weeks, and it keeps going back to my turntable because you can go. It's a chancy thing, picking up a Sun Ra record. You never know what you're
yes, it is.
And he's one of those artists that there are probably like 3,000 Sun Ra records in the orchestra. And what I love about this is when Sun Ra first went to New York City from Chicago, shrunk the band. Tom Wilson produced this, who worked on Dylan and Leonard Cohen. And
we've done some of his stuff for Tone Poet.
Yeah, I know that. I have this is such a good record, and it's very percussive, and I love the surrealist cover, obviously. But I just love the sound of this.
Was that the one that was on Concord?
It's Kraft.
They're Concord to me.
Yeah. Okay. Right. There's the parent.
That's from the original master tape. Yeah. That sounded really good.
It's so good. I put it on and I never know what I'm going to get because I don't preview, which is I probably should. And I keep going back to this record. This is to me one of the perfect packages of cover, of sound, of price point. And like everyone should be doing records like this as far as I'm concerned. Very percussive, very tight, and just really good sounding. It's kind of that late 50s, early 60s beatnik
Right.
bongo-y
Right.
kind of.
Yeah, Sunrod's not one of my favorite artists, but that is a great record.
It's so good. It's so good. Another one, my favorite guitar player of all time, or stringed instrument player, is Ry Cooder. Anything Ry Cooder is for me. But this double 45
oh yeah
of VM Bot, it's Indian and acoustic guitar and whatever his instrument is. I can't pronounce it. And a double 45 acoustic sounds, Analogue Productions.
Yeah,
So,
I worked with Bobby Alexander on that. It was recorded to a 1-inch machine, which they brought in. It was a Studer C37 or J37 converted to.
And they tell all the technical information on the recording thing, which is rare, obviously. But this sounds so good, and I think it's still available. I would, if you like, it's a moody record, but gorgeous, beautiful record.
Mazzy, what year did they record that? What year was that recording?
89 or
something like that. Yeah, it won a Grammy.
93.
It won a Grammy, I think. The original.
Yeah, did it? I mean, anything Ry Cooder touches, as far as I'm concerned. And probably, I don't want to embarrass Kevin. I don't know what it was like cutting this and mastering this, but this is probably the sexiest record that Kevin Gray has ever, or a handful. This is one of them. But Julie London, Latin in Satin Mood. Okay. You know this record. Do you remember this? You don't look like you don't remember it.
Me? Yeah, I do.
This is, okay, forget the cover for a second, but the music is sexy, gorgeous, cocktail music. And I think it's only a trio, so it's really well recorded. I mean, her stuff.
Was Bobby Troop playing piano on that, or her husband?
Yeah, who she married. And I don't know if she's married at the time. But yeah, and they were on
TV Emergency shows, together.
Emergency TV show in the 80s or whatever it was. Yeah. All this series, I know Chad's done several of the Julie London. I suppose you did them all. I don't know.
I don't think so. It might be the only one, actually.
Oh God, get this record, and it's reasonably priced, and it's so good, and it's a 33, and it's really good. And I just want to throw one more in, just because now I have a lot of Kevin's records, and of course I looked it up to see what I have, and this is out of the box, and it shows that he can do other things. And I bet you these recordings weren't necessarily, they're definitely not audiophile, but come on, Kevin, the Cramps.
Okay. Was that for Drastic Plastic? Who was that for?
It is. I think so. IRS, Universal Special Projects, Drastic Plastic.
Yeah, I love doing work for them. All of their stuff is so off the wall, but I've enjoyed just about everything.
It's cowpunk, it's country punk, and it's not what you think. It's not like hardcore at all, but it's loud, but it's not crazy loud.
I love doing work for those guys. I
just had to throw something a little different in because we can't always have female vocalists for the audiophile crowd. That's it for me.
Very good. I didn't bring my records because I was on the train this morning, but I mean, I know Kevin and I have talked about this before. I love Kevin's work with Steely Dan's Asia that he did. What was it?
Cisco?
2003, I believe.
Cisco.
2003. No, 2007. The 2000.
Oh, right. It was for the 30th anniversary or whatever.
Yeah, it was the Cisco.
Yeah, right.
I love that.
Cisco or Impacts. I always get them mixed up because that was right in the transition.
And I learned from Kevin that he actually you mastered that. You ran the tape backwards on that cut, right?
We had to make a tape copy because that was kind of before I got vetted for receiving Universal's tapes. And so I went down to Universal and supervised the tape copy, and we ran the master tape backwards and cut it from the backwards copy. And that's an old trick. Bruce Botnick actually told me about it originally. He said sometimes the copy sounds better than the master tape, which doesn't even seem possible.
How is that? Wow.
Yeah, it's because all of the transients are reversed. So instead of hitting a fast transient, you're just hitting kind of a mild ramp, So it copies better.
Have you done that very often in some of your cuts, like other ones? Have you done any of mastering backwards in the past, like other than the Cisco cut?
Oh yeah, there have been other things, but I don't remember what they were. I mean, that was probably the one that got the most notoriety.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I finally got my mono and stereo Coltrane Blue Train, so I was able to compare the two. I know Kevin is a huge stereo guy. I will tell you though, there's something about the mono pressing. It just sort of popped for me. I just love the way it
I picked the
sounded.
mono over the stereo on that album.
Smooth and just.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I prefer this mono on that album.
You prefer the mono?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it was
on
Joe
record
that
on that.
said. I think Joe said stereo on that interview. I think maybe that's what you're mixing up, maybe. But who knows? Does it matter?
I'll tell you why. It's an engineering thing. Rudy was kind of messing with the reverb on the sax on that. It's very noticeable on the stereo, which I find a little distracting. It's not as noticeable on the mono, and so that's kind of why I prefer it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the mono. It's a great pressing. It's lovely. I'm really happy I have both. I was able to compare both as well.
They're both great.
And then finally,
you got to buy the
that?
stereo to get the extra album, and the booklet and stuff. So
They should have done that as a
people to buy
box.
both.
They should have done that as a box, like they did with My Favorite Things, where you get both.
Yeah. Well, they were putting out the extra album, the outtakes.
Yeah.
And that deluxe booklet and everything. That would have been a little bit.
I think a lot of audience doesn't want to be forced to buy one or the other. People are always bitching about that type of thing. So maybe that's what it is,
Yeah.
And lastly, for me, I'm pretty predictable, and you'll know what it is because we've talked about it. I think it's Kevin and Doug Sax's cut or mastering of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon 2003 EMI 30th anniversary. Love that album. Love
one of my favorite projects that I've ever worked on. It's right up probably in my top 5. Or
tell us a little bit about that project, because I know lots will be wanting to hear about how that went down, the 2003 cut.
Okay, at that time, Mastering Lab had packed up all of their disc cutting equipment and put it in storage. They just decided the record was dead. We're not going to do it anymore. And later on, they moved it up to Ojai and put it back in. But at that time, they had no disc cutting system. So I guess Doug talked to Stan Ricker, and he talked to me and decided to go with me. And so, so we collaborated on it. And there were like 5 engineers in the room when we did it, which was kind of crazy. What's his name? Who used to work at the Mastering Lab.
As observers, just to see?
No. Okay, so we used his tape machine, and we used his equalizer, which was an EAR tube equalizer, and then it ran through my disc cutting system. So somebody had to be making the EQ changes, between songs and stuff. And so we ran it down, and Doug kind of made the decisions. But Arnie Acosta, that's who I was trying to think of, who used to work at Mastering Lab years ago. Arnie came up, and I think he did the actual EQ changes while it was cutting. And then Tom Pisano, who was their tech guy, was there. And then James Guthrie's assistant was there to oversee it. So, so it was quite a big project.
I've never heard it. I've never heard it. I've never heard it.
Well, okay. I dropped another one on a podcast. I said, you haven't heard the best version of it, because the best version was the one that was actually pressed at RTI. RTI did the metal work. They plated it, and then the stampers were sent off to Palace in Germany. But RTI did a limited run of test pressings, and in my opinion, killed the Palace version.
Wow.
The top end detail is just much better, and the low level resolution is much better. The funny part of that story is, after I dropped that on a podcast, apparently somebody found some test pressings and was selling them for $2,000 a piece on eBay.
Do you have one?
I do.
Good. You should.
How often do you play it?
I was working at the plant at the time,
Yeah, but you know how these things go sometimes. Yeah. Good for you.
How often do you play that test pressing, Kevin?
Pardon me?
How often do you play it?
I play it for clients when they come in sometimes, just to absolutely blow their minds.
Wow. Well, guys, this was amazing. Thank you for your time. What time do we have? We're almost up, I think, huh?
About 40
minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we'll wrap it there. I think that's I really appreciate everyone's time. It was fun. I think our viewers will probably go out and buy some of these records now, probably because of this. So Kevin, thanks for your time. Nathan, thank you. Norman, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll have to do this again.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.